Good morning. We are gathered here to warmly welcome His Excellency Mammadov, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Azerbaijan, who is on a special tour of Beijing, meeting with the Chinese leaders in the Chinese Foreign Ministry as well as the International Cooperation Department of the CPC Central Committee. We are very happy and honored to meet with His Excellency, the Ambassador, and all the other Azerbaijan friends. I have been meeting with the embassy officials on and off for quite some time. And in September last year, I had the great honor of visiting Baku for the first time and deeply impressed with Baku as a city as well as Azerbaijan as a great nation. And on behalf of Henry Wang, the chairman, and Mabel Miao, who are in Hainan Island right now for other meetings, and in my personal name, as well as on behalf of all the members of CCG, we warmly welcome Your Excellency. And we also have the presence of the media here, who are very eager to interview you or talk with the distinguished Azerbaijan friends about cooperation, about connectivity, about the changing world we are living through. So on the CCG side, we have quite a few of our distinguished fellows and members. We have Michael Liu, the Vice President and Senior Fellow over here. We have Mr. Pei Hongxie, also a Vice President who used to work with the Chinese Foreign Ministry many years ago, and who has been in business for a very successful career. We have Professor Su Hao, a very distinguished professor at the Chinese University of Foreign Affairs, and who has contributed a lot to better understanding between China and the rest of the world. We also have Dr. An Tang, who is in charge of our international cooperation on behalf of CCG, and we also have the very well-known Zun Ahmed Khan, who is a research fellow and also is affiliated with the Tsinghua University here. She is originally from Pakistan. And we have Veronica Liu, research fellow over here, and we have Miss Jia, another research fellow. So, and I think we have also other friends gathered here in addition to the media friends, and we are all very happy. Now, for this morning, we will be very happy to listen to Your Excellency, to the Ambassador, other friends, as to what you can shed light for us on the situation in your great country, in Caucasus, in Central Asia, and in the world as a whole. And we'll be very happy to exchange views with you, to answer any questions you may have. And we may also be eager to help improve your understanding of the situation here in China, as well as China's relations with other countries, especially with the United States. So I will skip the introduction of CCG itself, because I think we have lots of brochures and other introductory materials, so we will focus on what really matters the most. And Your Excellency, we are all truly very honored. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Gao. Dear friends, colleagues, it is a true honor to be here, and I want to thank you for, first of all, hosting me. This is my first visit to this great country, and in my role as Deputy Foreign Minister of Azerbaijan, China is in my portfolio. And I have so high expectations for this visit, and as part of this visit, we're planning to hold the next round of political consultations with our counterparts at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and I'll be also having meetings at the Communist Party and at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So very packed agenda for a couple of days here, but I hope it's not the last visit. We always believe that these exchanges are very productive. First, it's important for you to have the first-hand knowledge of how we see the various political processes that are taking place in our region and the worldwide in general. It is, of course, very important for us to understand the Chinese perspective on these issues, how you see, especially now in quite turbulent times, the situation that is unfolding in front of our eyes. Many tectonic changes, not conventional moves by some leaders of some states. And unless we have a fair understanding of where we are and where we're heading, it would be extremely difficult to analyze these political processes, both for us and for you, I guess. The main focus of my intervention or speech today will be about Azerbaijani-Chinese relationship. The relationship that we are very proud of, that we invest a lot of resources in, the relationship that we cherish, and we hope that in the years and decades to come we will be able to see the new heights in this relationship. And based on this introduction on the bilateral relations between Azerbaijan and China, I hope we will have another round of maybe in the second part of today's discussions to have exchanges about overall processes in terms of what is going on in the world today. I could brief you on regional developments in the South Caucasus, especially in the peace process between Azerbaijan and Armenia, which is an important part of the peace and stability in our region, and hope to be hearing more about what is going on in this part of the world from you and from the colleagues. Before I move on, just to follow your tradition, Excellency, let me also introduce our delegation. I'm here joined by our ambassador to China, His Excellency Mr. Bunyad Huseynov, ambassador extraordinary and plenipotentiary to the Communist Republic of China, to the People's Republic of China, Mr. Jalal Mirzaev, the head of the Department for Asia and Oceania, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Azerbaijan, Mr. Rashad Karimov, who is the head of the Division of Department for Asia and Oceania in our minister, Mr. Ibrahim Ibrahimov, Chancellor at the Embassy of Azerbaijan to China, Mr. Rauf Abdullayev, First Secretary in our Embassy, Mr. Ayar Huseynov, Second Secretary in our Embassy, and Ms. Usnia Gafarova, Attaché at the Embassy of Azerbaijan to China. So with that, let me talk about four important pillars of our relationship with China that we believe, of course, we won't be able to cover all of them, but within the relatively limited time afforded to us today, I'll be speaking about four pillars, and those will be: first, the political dimension; second, economic and trade; third, the humanitarian aspects of our relationship; and the fourth will be about the global order, international order, and how we interact with China within various international organizations, how we support each other's initiatives. And we believe that especially these days, this is an important part of the overall picture. So without further ado, let me start with the political dimension of our relationship. So first of all, the diplomatic relations between the two countries were established after the fall of the Soviet Union, when Azerbaijan regained its independence. Just by way of background, Azerbaijan first gained its independence back in 1918 as Azerbaijan Democratic Republic, and we take pride in being the first country in the Muslim East to declare a republican democracy. That lasted only for 23 months. Then we became the part of the Soviet Union for almost 70 years, and after the fall of the Soviet Union, we regained our independence in 1991. And in 1992, along with many other nations, we established diplomatic relations with China. And in 2 years from now, we will be celebrating a 35-year anniversary of the establishment of our diplomatic relations, and we very much look forward to agreeing on an action plan in order to celebrate that important milestone in our relationship. Well, first important aspect of our relationship over the last 30 years now is that we've never had any political crisis in our relationship with China. There have never been any ups and downs, the kinds that you would see in the relationship among some other states. So the stable trajectory has always been there, and I think this speaks to the very resilient nature of our relationship, to the fact that the relationship has always been steady. There have been mutual high-level visits. Just to take a look at the last 5 years, we were honored to greet the Foreign Minister of China, His Excellency Mr. Wang Yi, in Azerbaijan in 2019. That visit he was received by His Excellency President Aliyev. When he was in Azerbaijan, that visit was preceded by the visit of our Foreign Minister to China in 2018. His Excellency President Aliyev paid a visit to China in 2019 in order to take a part at the second forum of the Belt and Road Initiative, an important initiative that Azerbaijan was one of the first countries to support. And as a sort of natural consequence of this quite positive trajectory was adoption of the joint declaration on strategic partnership between Azerbaijan and China just last July, on the sidelines of the summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which was hosted in Astana. And I think that was, at least for now, was one of the pinnacles, one of the culmination points of our relationship. So let me sort of quickly take you through the main aspects of the strategic partnership declaration, because we believe this is now a very good summary of where we stand in terms of our bilateral relations. So as I said, we're still in a political sort of aspect of our relationship, and based on the strategic partnership declaration, we agreed to expand cooperation between Azerbaijan and China across various fields, such as political, economic, cultural spheres, to strengthen our interaction in international affairs, to jointly protect the common interests of two countries, and jointly promote the cause of regional and global peace, stability, and development. The second is important aspect of our political relationship is a mutual respect, equality, trust, mutual support, mutual benefit, and cooperation as a fundamental principles of our bilateral relations. And we consider each other as priority and reliable partners, and in the meantime, we acknowledge that we independently determine the policies and also the policy of our bilateral relations. And last and not least, in terms of the joint declaration, the political aspects of the joint declaration between the two countries is our obligation to refrain from any actions that, in the opinion of one of the parties, would harm the strategic partnership and strategic relations of the two states. So we are now bound by these obligations, and we are very much committed to continue working towards deepening our ties. It is very hard to overestimate the role of the friendship and personal relationship between the leaders of two states. His Excellency President Xi Jinping called Azerbaijani president a friend of China, and I think that speaks for itself in terms of the level of the friendship and close relationship between the leaders of two states, which definitely contribute to the current level of affairs and relationship between the two countries. We've also put in the declaration quite fundamental principles of international law, which have always been important for these two countries, and those are the mutual respect for territorial integrity, non-violation, non-aggression, and non-interference in internal affairs. As you may be aware, we have always supported and continue to support the principle of one China, and we recognize that there is only one China in the world, and the government of the People's Republic of China is the only legitimate government representing the whole of China. And as such, we consider Taiwan as an integral part of the Chinese territory, and we firmly oppose any form of Taiwan, so-called Taiwan independence. And we support the peaceful development of relations between the two shores of the Taiwan Strait, and the efforts being made by the Chinese government for the reunification of China. And that was clearly stated in our political declaration, in the joint declaration on strategic partnership. By the way, if you take a look at the number of the countries, back, I believe, last January, when there were so-called presidential elections in Taiwan, Azerbaijan was one of the first countries that condemned those elections and clearly put forward its position that it does not recognize any so-called presidential elections in Taiwan, and that has been our consistent position across over the last decade since restoring of independence of Azerbaijan. In the meantime, China support our peace agenda in our region, and I will provide more information as part of our exchange following my presentation in terms of the first support to the territorial integrity of Azerbaijan, and second in terms of the peace process and normalization process between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And China considers that it is counterproductive for some countries to interfere in this region and to impose their own agenda. So in terms of the conflict, I'm sure you're well aware, but this is obviously something that shaped the way Azerbaijan has developed after the regaining of its independence. And I'm talking about the conflict that was at the time referred to as Nagorno-Karabakh conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia. And you may remember that there were 4 resolutions of the United Nations Security Council in 1993, and China, as a permanent member of the Security Council, voted in support of those resolutions, which demanded unconditional and immediate withdrawal of the occupying forces of Armenia from our sovereign and international recognized territories. But unfortunately, Armenia ignored those resolutions for almost 30 years, and the OSCE Minsk group, which was set up in order to resolve that conflict, failed to come up with any tangible progress. And as a result of the Second Karabakh War, we were able to liberate our lands in 2020 and then fully restore our sovereignty in 2023. And we're grateful to the position of China in support of our territorial integrity throughout these years. First, as I said, as a permanent member of the Security Council, China supported those resolutions, and throughout this year supported our territorial integrity. So that is an important aspect of, as in the case of Taiwan and China. Here, the conflict in Karabakh at the time was a critical factor in that affected our development since the regaining of our independence. Now, to continue, in terms of our political interactions, we support the cooperation between our political and public institutions in Azerbaijan and China, and we believe they contribute to development and further comprehensive deepening of relations between our countries. There is an important interaction between the political parties here, the Communist Party in China and the ruling New Azerbaijan Party in Azerbaijan, and there have been exchanges and visits that continue between the political leadership of two parties. And just recently, last November, the deputy chair of the New Azerbaijani Party, he was on a visit to China, and those exchanges continue, and there will be more visits throughout this year. And also the important aspect of the political dimension is interaction between the legislative bodies in two countries, between the parliaments. And you may be aware that there are friendship groups in legislative bodies in the parliaments of both countries. And there are regularly exchanges and visits between the heads of the friendship groups in Azerbaijan and China. And just recently, just a couple of months ago, at the beginning of this year, there was a visit by the chair of the friendship group for Azerbaijan and China in our parliament, and he was on a visit to China. A quick look at how sort of the documents and the agreements that have been signed between the two countries. We are proud to report that 90 documents over the last 3 decades have been signed between these two friendly nations, and I think this is a solid basis for our future relationship. So that is on a political dimension. Now with that, let me turn to the economic and trade relationship between the two countries. So first of all, we appreciate the sustainable and dynamic development of trade and economic relations between the two countries. And there's an intergovernmental commission on trade and economic cooperation established back in 1998, 1999. And that is the main mechanism between Azerbaijan and China in terms of the review of the progress in economic cooperation and trade. And there have been so far 9 meetings of that commission, the joint meetings of that commission. Normally they are held here in China, also in Azerbaijan, on a reciprocal basis. And in the fields of trade, investment, we are interested in a number of specific areas, and those are the fields of transport and communication. Now the field of green energy, which is an evolving industry, the recycling and production, the infrastructure, the digital economy, agriculture, and other important areas. And those are all covered in our joint declaration of strategic partnership now. To facilitate the activities of companies of Azerbaijan and China, we actively promote cooperation in areas such as energy. As you know, Azerbaijan has traditionally been an oil and gas country. We are actually the first country that started the production of oil through industrial methods back in the middle of the 19th century. And we are also the first country that started the production of offshore oil fields in the middle of the 20th century during the Soviet times. So the traditional fossil fuel energies now is also complemented by the evolvement and development of the green energy field, and those both fields are important sectors of our economy now. Transport infrastructure, information and telecommunication, non-ferrous metal, and building materials. So those are the specific areas that we have identified in our joint declaration as priority areas for development. You may be aware that we actively participate at the China International Import Expo, at the China Import and Export Goods Fair, at the China International Services Trade Fair, and other major exhibitions held in this country. We also welcome the active participation of the Chinese leading companies at various exhibitions and fairs organized in Azerbaijan. One of them is ADEX, it's an international military exhibition that is held in autumn, normally held in autumn in Azerbaijan. And there are other exhibitions that are held, and we continue to exchange delegations at those exhibitions, which we believe to be also an important platform of interaction. If you look at our trade turnover, we can report the increase of 20%. If we compare 2023 with 2024, then there's an increase of 20% in our trade turnover. There's been steady increase over the last few years. Currently, we have around 300 active companies, Chinese companies with Chinese investments in Azerbaijan, and we hope that the number will grow. And statistically, China continues to be in top 5 countries which are the trading partners of Azerbaijan, and it is the main source of import of goods in Azerbaijan. In the meantime, we have, over the last few years, we have opened now 6 trade houses in China, in various cities, and we hope that the operation of these trade houses, they will also contribute to the increase of trade between the two countries. I mean, trade has always been and will continue to be an important aspect of our relationship. as we've taken a decision to diversify away from the energy sector, from the fossil fuel to green energy, that is within the energy sector, but also to diversify away from the energy sector to other non-energy sectors. One of the important non-energy sectors that we invest a lot of resources in is connectivity. And of course, when we talk about connectivity, China is a country that first comes to mind in terms of the international transport corridors that connect China to Europe and provides for most part of the traffic between the two parts of the world, and that goes, and the two corridors that go through the territory of Azerbaijan. So you may be aware that we always refer to the ancient Silk Road that was passing through the territory of many countries, but also through the territory of Azerbaijan, and we have always been privileged to leverage our geopolitical and geographic location historically throughout the centuries and now these days. And nowadays we refer to the digital Silk Road, not the ancient Silk Road, but the digital Silk Road, which is also built along the ancient Silk Road. And part of that is, of course, the Belt and Road Initiative proposed by His Excellency President Xi Jinping back in 2013. The initiative that was first supported also by Azerbaijan was in a group of countries that first supported the initiative, and we actually actively started investing in our infrastructure in order to expand connectivity throughout our territory, and that is one of the important dimensions of our development these days. As we invest in non-energy sectors, we believe that transportation, logistics, and connectivity are those important areas where we would like to seek and generate added value in terms of our economy. So there's one agreement which is on the development of international multimodal transport between the two governments, which is in the pipeline. We also support each other's efforts in order to ensure the safety and uninterrupted operation of international transport corridors which pass through these territories. And of course, speaking of the corridors, there are at least 3 major corridors that pass through the territory of Azerbaijan. But of course, when we speak about China, the most important would be the International Trans-Caspian Corridor, which is also referred to as the Middle Corridor, which connects China to Europe and provides for most of the traffic that goes in both directions. And we actively welcome the active support of China to that initiative, to that corridor, which some people consider to be part of the Belt and Road Initiative, because Belt and Road Initiative is quite a huge and ambitious program which has a lot of components, but one of them, of course, is connectivity, and we believe this to be part of that. And that provides for the connection through territory of Azerbaijan to Europe, the freight trains that go in both directions and provide for the movement of cargo. In fact, in light of the changes in the geopolitical situation, especially in light of the war in Ukraine, in the last 3 years, we've seen a significant increase of the traffic through the Middle Corridor. In 2023, we recorded the increase of 75% in terms of the traffic, and we know that in light of the situation, China is also taking a closer look at how we could facilitate and increase the volume of trade through the traffic through the Middle Corridor. There've been a number of initiatives. One of those initiatives was connecting the famous port of Siam here in China with Baku, and then with the Georgian ports of Poti in the Black Sea. And there were trains that started the journey here in Siam, and it only took them 11 days in order to make it to Georgia, to the Georgian ports, which is the Black Sea. And that was definitely an impressive number of days, because if you compare that to the northern route, which is normally used historically been used by China, you would be looking at 18 to 20 days, but definitely not to 11 to 12 days. So in terms of the number of days involved for the traffic of goods through the middle corridor, it's substantially less. And currently we have set up a commission with Kazakhstan and Georgia, which are the two other countries in the middle corridor, in order to facilitate the trade, but also to provide for the digitalization of the middle corridor, to make it more user-friendly and to lift any bottlenecks that are out there. And that would hopefully allow us to increase the traffic of goods through the middle corridor. But in order to achieve that, over the last few years, we've invested heavily in our infrastructure. We've built the Baku International Sea Trade Port on the Caspian Seashore, which is the largest trade port in our region in the Caspian Sea. We have the largest commercial fleet in the Caspian Sea with more than 50 vessels. We also have the footprint in the Black Sea. Now there are vessels owned by Azerbaijan that also navigate in the Black Sea. In 2017, we commissioned the very important part of the railroad, which is part of the middle corridor. It is called Baku-Tbilisi-Kars Railroad, which connects Baku with the capital of Georgia, Tbilisi, and then Kars, the city in the southern part of Turkey. And that is an important part of the middle corridor. But in order for that to be operational, of course, we had to invest in that quite expensive projects at the time, and that was almost 10 years ago. So we started this journey almost 10 years ago in order to expand the infrastructure in the territory of Azerbaijan, and those decisions made at the time now allow us to be a reliable partner and also an important partner as part of this middle corridor. The other important dimension that we hope to be seeing more development in is bringing investments from China to Azerbaijan, especially to the liberated territories of Karabakh and Eastern Zangezur. Those are the territories which were completely obliterated by the occupying forces of Armenia during the war, the First War, the Second Karabakh Wars, but also during the years of occupation. And over the last 3 years, we have been heavily investing in rebuilding those cities and villages from scratch. And I'm proud to report that a number of Chinese companies have been helping Azerbaijan and continue to help Azerbaijan in the rebuild of those territories. We have declared the liberated territories as green energy territory. So we will be using all of the renewable sources in that territory in order to power those territories. We're building smart cities and villages using also Chinese technology. At the risk of not mentioning some other companies, I would like to mention Huawei as one of our partners that has partnered up and teamed up with Azerbaijani companies and the government of Azerbaijan in order to provide for digital solutions to those smart cities and villages. But we are hopeful that we will be seeing more Chinese investments and more Chinese companies coming and investing in Azerbaijan, especially in this area, which, as I said, completely a greenfield investment area where you have to rebuild almost 9 cities from scratch, as they were all destroyed during the years of war and during the years of occupation. Now, with that, let me say a few words about the green agenda, green energy. As you know, Azerbaijan is last year and continues to be this year the president of the 29th conference of the parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and we were proud to host the conference COP29 last November, and the Chinese delegation was represented at the high level, at the level of the first Deputy Prime Minister of China, His Excellency Mr. Ding Xuexian. He visited Azerbaijan and he was received by His Excellency President Aliyev. And the COP29 registered a number of significant progresses in the field of green agenda. I will only mention a few. One, of course, is a Baku finance call, which was set at the level of $1.3 trillion, which is a target necessary to achieve by year 2035 in terms of the galvanizing all the funds from governmental, public and private sources in order to tackle the problem of climate change. The second is NCQG. You may remember that the NCQG, which is a collective goal, quantifiable goal, it was set back in 2009 at the level of $100 billion, and for many years, despite all the discussions at previous COPs, it was not possible to increase the level of NCQG to adequately address the problem of the issues of climate change. At Baku COP, at COP29, we were finally able to reach a consensus with all the parties to increase that level to 300 billion USD, and that is the target set by the COP29. Also by year 2035, we are hoping, all the countries are hoping to increase the financing to $300 billion for the countries that are most affected by the climate change. The Loss and Damage Fund, which was again in discussion for many years, but it was not possible to agree on operation. We are glad to report that from last year, the Loss and Damage Fund finally became operational, and now we have the fund which collects and actually provides financing to the countries, especially small island developing states that are mostly affected by the adverse impacts of the climate change, also to some other countries that are that have vulnerability to the climate change issues. And finally, Article 6, which is carbon markets. And Article 6 has always been in discussion for many years without any progress, and at Baku COP we were finally able to agree on Article 6 in order to create carbons market, which allows the countries to trade in carbon credits, an important development as well. And we were glad to see how China supported Azerbaijan's initiatives at leading COP29 during the negotiations. Of course, as a main voice of the global south, we were very much interested in what the position of China is on the issues of climate change. There were a number of delegations from Azerbaijan, the lead negotiator, president of COP29. It was last March, I believe, just a year ago. They were on a visit in order to hold these negotiations with our Chinese friends. Currently, we are involved in a number of projects, and I will name a few. So, first of all, a few years ago, we have started building solar and wind farms in Azerbaijan, and have started attracting foreign investments for that purpose. There are investments from Saudi Arabia, there are investments from the UAE, from the UK. But I'm also glad to report that there are companies from China that have now engaged in the construction of renewable energy sources in Azerbaijan, and specifically a number of companies such as China Datong, China Energy, Power China, China Southern Power Grid. They have signed the memorandums on understanding during COP29 in Azerbaijan with the Minister of Energy and with the counterparts in Azerbaijan. And one of the projects that was signed was between SOCAR Green. SOCAR is a major there's a national oil and gas company in Azerbaijan, and SOCAR Green is its subsidiary which is dealing with green energy projects. And the agreement between China Energy and SOCAR Green was about the construction of a solar farm, of a solar power plant station in a liberated district of Azerbaijan in Karabakh, the district called Fizuli. And the solar farm is for 160 megawatts. And this is one of the major projects currently that we've engaged with our Chinese partners. We also have a very steady cooperation with a company called BYD, very well known here and worldwide. And we have purchased electric buses from BYD, and currently we're working with BYD on a joint production of electric buses in Azerbaijan, with the localization of that production in the coming years. Another important element, of course, is technology and digital economy. Digital transformation is one of the priority areas for our economy at the moment, and I'm also glad to inform you that we have close cooperation with a number of Chinese high-tech companies that are helping us to engage and to successfully transform in digital to carry a digital transformation of our economy. And the AI as one of the important areas of development, of human development now, I would say, and AI generated solutions is at the core of that cooperation. So this is something we're now currently engaged with the Chinese companies. Now, traditional area of education, we have been cooperating quite deeply and closely with our Chinese friends in the area of education, and that area was also in that area we've been able to sign a number of documents on the recognition of diplomas and academic degrees issued in each other's countries. There are language courses and various faculties offered in Azerbaijan and China. In Azerbaijan, you are able to study Chinese languages in a number of educational institutions. Also, we support the development and the activity of Confucius institutes, which are present in Azerbaijan. The Chinese government offers scholarships to our students. Each year, we have 100 scholarships offered by the Chinese government to Azerbaijani students, and our students are privileged to come and live and study in China at the leading universities here. And of course, there are programs offered by Azerbaijan to the Chinese students, and they are all actively developing. So on the cultural front, a few words in terms of our shared cultural roots. As I said, being part of the ancient Silk Road, there are many legacies that we cherish, and this is a very solid basis for our cooperation in the field of culture. There's a foundation, Heydar Aliyev Foundation in Azerbaijan, that is very active in support of various humanitarian projects here in China. They are working mainly with the Chinese People's Association for Friendship with Foreign Countries, and the president of the association has been on a visit to China a number of times and always received by President Aliyev. And Heydar Aliyev Foundation created a pavilion at the Expo Park in Bengbu in Anhui province of China. The pavilion called Window to Azerbaijani Culture. And in the ancient residence Expo Park in Bengbu, there is an opportunity for the visitors to come and see that pavilion. And also there's a Nizami Ganjavi monument, the great Azerbaijani poets monument in that city. I would like to say a few words about tourism, which always provides for people-to-people contacts. Obviously, the number of tourists over the last few years have increased in both directions, and Azerbaijan participated at the annual China International Tourism Fair and other tourism exhibitions here in China. And last year there was an important decision taken by the government of Azerbaijan in order to exempt from visa requirements to the holders of ordinary passports the Chinese citizens. And since last July, the citizens of China, they're able to travel to Azerbaijan without applying for visa. So this visa exemption, that is currently just for a year, but I hope that as part of the discussions we'll be able to facilitate further exemptions, and that definitely contributes to the number of tourists. And we've looked at the numbers. If you compare 2023, 24, and the numbers that we're seeing now, the number of tourists coming from China to Azerbaijan has doubled, and we believe that the visa exemption was one of the critical factors in that. Of course, direct flights are important in order for the tourists to make their life easy. And since December 2023, we've had direct flights between Baku and Beijing. And I myself and the members of our delegation from Azerbaijan, we took that flight while visiting China this time. And there's also a direct flight between Baku and Urumqi. And we hope that the numbers of direct flights will also increase, because we definitely see that this contributes to the people-to-people context, also to the number of tourists traveling in both directions. So with that, let me now approach the final component of our relationship, which is also enshrined in a joint declaration, which is our view of the international order. There are a number of important principles shared by Azerbaijan and China when we come to this issue. So let me take them one by one. So first, we've said in our declaration that we jointly support the international system under the auspices of the United Nations. Of course, as we all know, the United Nations is now subject to a number of criticism these days, especially in terms of its inability to maintain peace and stability around the world, its inability to provide for efficient mechanisms in order to prevent conflicts or to resolve them once those conflicts have emerged. But even despite all of that criticism, we believe that this is, for now, the system that needs support, and we need to continue to work in order to improve the system. And we adhere to the international order based on international law, the principles, the fundamental principles and norms of international law, which are enshrined in the UN Charter. We also said that we adhere to multilateralism, and we support the constructive role of the UN in international affairs, and we will continue to strengthen our cooperation within the UN. Overall, both Azerbaijan and China, we advocate for the promotion of the common values of humanity, such as peace, development, equality, justice, democracy, and freedom, and we contribute to the creation of a community of a common destiny of mankind and a new type of international relations. And as developing countries, we are also ready to strengthen cooperation and jointly protect the common interests of developing countries. By the way, you may remember that Azerbaijan was the president of the non-aligned movement for almost 4 years, from 2019 to 2023, from 2019 to 2023. And as a result, and that is a movement, the institution which unites 120 countries. And that is the largest institution after the United Nations. And we've invested a lot of resources in terms of our support to the developing world. Especially, we have programs for the countries in the African continent. We've made contributions and donations to those countries, also to the small island developing states. That is also one of the priority areas. And as president of COP29, we continue to lend our support to the small island developing states. So this policy has been in place in Azerbaijan, and also I know that in China it has been the case for many years that we support the developing countries across the board. One important issue that I believe both Azerbaijan and China suffer from is politicization and the introduction of double standards on human rights issues. We closely follow the various campaigns addressed against China, and you may be aware that Azerbaijan is also subjected to those campaigns from time to time. And we said in our declaration that we oppose interference in the internal affairs of any state under the pretext of protecting human rights, and support for the protection of human rights by ensuring security, facilitating human rights through development, promoting human rights through cooperation. This is how we see this. And we don't believe that human rights should be politicized and then used as a point of pressure against the developing countries. Something important for you to know is that we support the 3 major initiatives proposed by the Chinese government, and those are the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and Global Civilization Initiative. And we expressed our readiness to actively participate in cooperation within the framework of these initiatives to accelerate 2030 agenda for sustainable development. China also supports a number of initiatives proposed by our government, such as Baku Process, which is the intercultural dialogue platform supported by the UN, which was introduced by President Aliyev in 2008, and a number of other global platforms and forums that are held in Azerbaijan to promote intercultural dialogue. A few final points. China welcomed strengthened cooperation between Azerbaijan within the framework of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and as I said, I'll be having meetings here as part of my visit, and the enhancement of the legal status of Azerbaijan, which is a dialogue partner within that organization, the enhancement of that status within the organization. And you know that China is a president, as a chair of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization this year, and there will be a summit of the heads of states later on this year in China. So we know that this is an important part of the agenda of the government here for this year. Also, the China's support to our desire to join BRICS, and our close cooperation with BRICS is one of the areas. Now, final point is the support by China to our aspirations to join the World Trade Organization, and China is supports our active participation in the development and cooperation of the international multilateral trading system, and supports our actions towards the WTO accession process. Now, overall, I believe this year will be an important year in the bilateral ties between the two friendly nations. There are a number of events, number of exchanges, number of visits planned, and I hope that as part of this development, by the end of this year, we will be able to register even more remarkable progress in our relationship. So this would be, I guess, given the time limitations. There's a saying in English, you should stop speaking before people stop listening. So I think I should stop now. And with that, I would like to turn back this to you, Excellency, for any questions or any follow-up discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think we are all ears, and I'm personally very much impressed by this very thorough, complete, comprehensive description of Azerbaijan, as well as China-Azerbaijan relations, as well as from the Azerbaijanis perspective, the world order and the international cooperation. It's very, very important, and I think for me in particular, it's very educational, and we are very grateful for you. You mentioned many things which are very important between China and Azerbaijan. Allow me to add another point which you might not have touched upon. That is the potential cooperation between China and Azerbaijan in artificial intelligence. Because I think we are already in this revolution of AI revolution, which is happening as we speak. And more or less, there are only two countries in the leading front, the United States and China. And up to this January, the United States really was dominating or tried to dominate the AI development, focusing on this so-called open AI model, which is closed-sourced. And then, lo and behold, you have this DeepSeek breakthrough. And Prime Minister Premier Li Qiang at the Reform Forum also in particular mentioned the importance of the DeepSeek moment. DeepSeek, to make the long story short, is open source, is the real open source development of AI. And I think one great contribution is that it may force the open AI model, which is closed AI, to become open AI sooner or later. And DeepSeek is truly an enabler at very low cost. And it allows everyone, every country, to enjoy and participate in this AI revolution at minimum cost. This is very important because I think the original way the United States is building up the AI, try to seek and keep the dominance of AI, is kind of an attempt of what I call try to make AI into American AI, which is not. AI should be an enabler for mankind as a whole. And I also coined a term called AI divide. We know digital divide. Your Excellency, you mentioned the digital cooperation between China and Azerbaijan, etc. But if there will be an AI divide, it will be even worse, because the way the Americans were promoting the AI revolution is building up such a high barrier in terms of cost, capital, power, electricity, and then all the hardware and software, to such an extent that few countries can afford to participate in. Not only major European countries, no European country is right now making any significant progress. France, Germany, Britain, you name it. And in Asia, countries like Japan has no role to play. South Korea, for example, even though it's very important in semiconductor businesses, is not really playing a significant role at all. So I think the original way of developing AI is dangerous to most of the countries in the world. Not only, for example, almost all African countries, and I travel to Africa also, and Latin American countries, Middle Eastern countries, Central Asian countries, Caucasus nations, for example, almost all the other countries are completely sidelined. And that will be, I think, a very dangerous pathway going forward. But thanks to the great contribution of DeepSeek, AI development going forward most likely will become more and more open sourced, meaning everyone, for example, everyone sitting around this table, every companies, institutions, governments, countries, civilizations in the world, if they care to participate, using the real open sourced AI model as spearheaded by DeepSeek. And now there are quite a few other open sourced AI stories coming out of China. I think this will create a leveling off effect for the AI development, and eventually it will truly turn AI into an enabler for all countries. I want to add this point just because I personally am very much intrigued by this transformation by AI itself, as well as the closed-sourced AI versus the real open-sourced AI. And I also am very interested in seeing all the other countries, especially great nations like Azerbaijan, for example, a very friendly nation, a nation which really share many of the values that China stands for. You mentioned so many things, which to me seem that these two nations are very much on the same page, especially in terms of defending sovereignty and territorial integrity, UN Charter, non-interference of each other's internal affairs, for example. And I think we are very grateful when you mentioned the importance of the One China policy, PRC government being the sole legitimate representative of China and Taiwan being part of China. And I think from the Chinese perspective, we will firmly support the sovereignty and territorial issues of Azerbaijan, for example. And you also mentioned China, Azerbaijan cooperating in many other ways: connectivity, high tech, agriculture, education, tourism, etc. In September last year, I took the flight from Baku to Urumqi. It's a very convenient flight, just a couple of hours. And I think with this visa exemption, more and more Chinese nationals will be very eager to travel to Baku, other cities in Azerbaijan, and visit your great country, exploring the great cultural heritage. I remember the old town in Baku is truly a must-see place. anyone around this table and all your friends and family members need to pay a visit to the old town in Baku, well preserved. It's a UNESCO heritage site. It's one of the best preserved older town, not only in the Caucasus region, in Central Asian region, in the Western Asia, North African region, etc. So I think tourism and cooperation of all kinds between our two countries and technical cooperations will flourish if these two countries will keep stability and friendship and constructive relations. But the point I want to really add is that, Your Excellency, in your discussion with the Chinese government officials, Foreign Ministry, International Cooperation, and you also mentioned the Friendship Association, for example, I hope you will mention this AI cooperation, because AI will make it or break it in the future. If any country is lagging behind in AI, whatever it has achieved over the thousands of years may be marginalized and sidelined. So I think this is the moment for China, for Azerbaijan, and all the other countries to really step up and take the bold move to embrace AI revolution. And then you need to have enablers. You need to have, capital or power or semiconductor breakthroughs, hardware, software, everything. Allow me to add a point before I turn to the Azerbaijan friends and my colleagues on this side of the table, that in China, I think if you listen very carefully to what President Xi Jinping has to say about new qualitative productivity, which can be translated into different terms, I think he's talking about really increasing productivity through science and technological innovations. And as of today, the most important enabler in this regard is the AI revolution. Therefore, you see China, everyone is talking about AI. Almost all companies, all government entities are talking about AI. And when you talk about the robotization, for example, all kinds of robotization, all kinds of AI applications, for example, you are talking about this wave of revolution sweeping through China, which may be the next real focus area for bringing China further up to speed. Now, you know for sure that as a result of almost 46 or 47 years of continuous Chinese reform and opening to the outside world, Chinese economy is now the largest economy if we use purchasing power parity. It's about 130% that of the United States. If we use official exchange rate as the benchmark, the Chinese economy at the end of last year is about 65% of the United States. But that is against the background that the Chinese yuan for the past 2 years or so depreciated against the dollar by about 17%. So if you normalize that, the size of the Chinese economy as of today is about 75% of the U.S. economy. So that means China over the past 46 years or so has completely transformed itself. And China has become the word on the lips of every politician in the United States. It seems that they cannot live any day without talking about China, mostly in negative terms, of course. But I hope, Secretary of State Rubio will be able to visit China and see China with his own eyes, and China-U.S. relations will stabilize. But in this overall context, the message I really want to convey to our very distinguished Azerbaijan friends is AI, 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 and use China as a source of enabling power to make sure that Azerbaijan is not left behind. When I travel throughout the world, I'm concerned that most of the countries I travel to are completely not aware of this sweeping revolution. don't wait until dominance has been created and you are always kept outside of the dominance. Try to work something with China, which is open source, which is leveling off the playground, enabling everyone, every country to participate, and no one will be left behind. So AI, according to the Chinese way of development, is really a true open AI, rather than a false AI, open only in its name and a closed end in its substance. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Yes, please.
Yeah. Thank you, Excellency. So there are a lot of thoughts around the table when it comes to AI. So some pundits suggest that this is the first time in the history of humankind that there is such a phenomenon that can make decisions for itself. So this is the first time there is something out there that human beings are not fully controlling. And this is the first time that this phenomenon can actually make decisions without consulting human beings. And this is indeed a sweeping revolution. I just had a few words on AI. I mentioned during the presentation that the companies we're working with from China, they're in most of the cases, as we build those smart cities and villages in the liberated territories, they're using AI-powered solutions. So this is one. Second, our Minister of Transportation and Digital Transformation, Digital Development, they are the main partner in terms of the development of AI and development of this field overall, but also when it comes to cooperation with the government of China and with the Chinese companies. And the minister was on a visit to China last year in order to continue discussions overall in terms of our cooperation, but definitely as this is something that is now part of our life and will be even a bigger part of our lives as we move forward. AI is definitely on the table as a discussion point, and we hope that of course Azerbaijan is not one of the countries that actually leads in this area. So what is important, as you mentioned, Mr. Vice President, that you are not trailing behind and you are joining this trend at the right time and before it's too late. So this is definitely something we keep an eye on, and definitely China, based on our very close political ties, is an obvious source for cooperation in the field of artificial intelligence. And as I said, this is a part of our agenda, and this is somewhat an emerging area in our cooperation compared to other conventional areas that I've mentioned. But going forward, I'm sure the AI will increase its sort of share in our cooperation, and the companies that we're inviting in Azerbaijan to invest and to cooperate with and be part of our economy. Obviously, these are the leading companies in the field of artificial intelligence, or these are the high-tech companies that are using AI-powered solutions. So thank you for bringing this up. Definitely, as I said, this will be even will have an increasing role as we move forward, and will continue to be part of our agenda. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Actually, the reason why I mention this is because, as I understand, there are more and more countries approaching China about AI cooperation. And I think at this moment, the sooner great countries like Azerbaijan start this process, the better. Because eventually, for example, these leading AI companies, they need to go out and work with different companies, different countries, etc., so that no one is left behind. One of the eagerness why China is so much promoting connectivity is because we want to have everyone be connected. No one is left behind. Now, in this AI revolution, it's even more serious, because if you are left behind, it will be very, very difficult to catch up. And the sooner you start, the better. And I think right now there are only two models: the open model that China is embracing and promoting, and the closed-ended model that the Americans are promoting. huge cost, huge barrier, very high walls, almost impossible to catch up with them, or you will bankrupt your economy if you really follow their way of spending, let's say, hundreds of billions of dollars, and each data center will be followed with a nuclear reactor, for example. That's the amount of power they are talking about. The Chinese way of developing AI cuts down the cost by 10% or 20%, cuts down the consumption of power by similar amount, 10%, 15%, etc. It really liberates. You mentioned the liberated area in Azerbaijan, and I hope personally I will be able to visit them in the future in my next trip to Azerbaijan. But liberating the development of AI is what China is doing right now. And I hope the great nation of Azerbaijan will seize the moment when you talk to the Chinese leader, etc. You will mention that maybe we can add another item to our list of discussion. In addition to all the things you mentioned, which are very, very impressive, China and Azerbaijan can talk about the AI cooperation. And I think we all will be very proud if China and Azerbaijan will eventually set up some framework of cooperation and making sure that Azerbaijan in the Caucasus region, in the Central Asian region, in the Muslim region, Islamic region, etc., will be a leading nation in the development of AI. Thank you very much. And I understand our time is short. So on the Azerbaijanese friend side and as well as on the Chinese friend side, if you have any questions or comments about His Excellency's wonderful presentation of China-Azerbaijan relations, etc., please, you will be welcome. Yes, Mike Liu, please.
Thank you very much. I would like to really join Victor to welcome Your Excellency to visit Center for China and Globalization. I really want to thank you for offering us such a very comprehensive update on this bilateral relationship. I look at that political stability definitely is the number one priority for many, companies going back and forth. Maybe I have a small suggestion, too small. I look at how we should get more fruits out of this solid partnership between two great countries. Number one, as Victor was saying, and AI definitely is sweeping changes we need to say. On the other hand, how to promote Azerbaijan as a great country for Chinese investment technology companies to invest there. I think CCG can come or play a role, maybe work with the embassy here to actively promote our opportunities. If you look at one of top concern for Chinese companies going outside, number one today, most of them, they are shifting to Southeast Asia because that's where they feel familiar, right? I think, even for myself, this is a very educational to know our partnership, to know, how what huge opportunity going on there. How we can make more Chinese company be aware of a potential with the things we should do, right? That's number one. Number two, right now, even for many Chinese families, driving to Xinjiang become a very aspirational, very exciting personal, entertainment, personal activities. Have a visa waive program for both countries. Maybe one day can, just like Victor was saying, driving from China to Baku to visit the city. And with, of course, certain mechanisms need to be in place. You don't want to accommodate maybe 100 million people from China, maybe just completely fraud the whole thing. But, periodically have adequate volume. When all the people come back, just like Victor, we'll be an ambassador to further strengthen the people-to-people exchange. I look at right now with such stable political framework, how we can make sure more, citizen, ordinary people, not someone like Victor, from both country, be able want to see the country, you want to understand your culture, your lifestyle, in the way you are living, and also many of our people from outside also curious about, how real China is about, right? I think with that, and then we will see much stronger economic growth as well as educational or cultural exchange programs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike.
Comments or after? Yeah.
You always have the
Thank you, Mr. Liu. Thank you for your insightful comments. Just quickly, first in terms of the role, potential increased role for the CCG in terms of bilateral relations, we could have a discussion here with our ambassador in terms of increasing your cooperation with a number of think tanks that operate in Azerbaijan. I'm not aware with which think tanks and research centers you have already established relationship, but once I get more information, I would be happy to facilitate more interaction between, say, there's a Center for the Analysis of International Relations in Azerbaijan, which could be one of the focal point of contacts for you. And then I believe in light, as I said, this year we expect to have good news, bigger, better, deeper in terms of our bilateral relations, and from that perspective, I think this only warrants more interaction between various institutions, both in Azerbaijan and China. And one of them, of course, an important one, is cooperation between the research centers and think tanks. That's one. And second, with respect to people-to-people exchange, I wonder how many people here in this room have ever been to Azerbaijan from among our Chinese friends. I know at least one guy, but are there more? So we have, I got 3 or 4, right, around the table. So we have potentially an unaccounted 20 tourists in this room that we should be inviting to Azerbaijan as soon as possible. As I said, currently there is, of course, you always are the guest, and can I would always be happy to welcome you in Azerbaijan. And as I said, since there's no visa at the moment, I think, and there are direct flights, this only makes it even easier as compared to previous years to travel to Azerbaijan. We hope to have this reciprocity from our Chinese friends, and to have the visa exemption from your side as well. So very good suggestions, and of course I believe that people-to-people exchange and these visits, even as political visits, these are also important because we get to see each other, we get to know each other, and this is how we deepen our ties between the two nations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Your Excellency. May I invite Your Excellency, the Ambassador, to... Everything. Everything. Thank you. May I invite Professor Su? Yes, a very distinguished professor of diplomacy. Yes.
Right, it's my great pleasure to meet our Chinese friends. First of all, I would like to appreciate you so much to have me learn quite a lot from your excellent presentation. It's very thoughtful and comprehensive knowledge, so that I learn about our bilateral relation and your country's perspective about international affairs. Now, let me have 3 words to express my thinking or feelings about these events. First, sincere gratitude. The second, a new angle to observe our bilateral relation. The third could be the question to you, our delegations. The reason why, first, I would like to express my sincere thanks to you, because in your delegation, you gave me a very good, important opportunity to meet my former students. Rashad Karimov, my former PhD student, who I graduated from my university. I was his supervisor. So maybe that could be some kind of secret, means you are the first Azerbaijani student to get a PhD in China in the fields of international relations.
This is the time to applaud. Wow.
Right, I'm pleased to be your supervisor.
He's fluent in Chinese.
Right, and he's
fluent in
very
Chinese.
outstanding
This is a
diplomat
typical example
in
of China-Azerbaijan friendship.
Exactly. I'm pleased to be a practitioner for the people-to-people, the educational exchange between our two countries. Yeah, and I'm also proud, to have my students now to be outstanding Azerbaijani diplomats, right? So the second, I appreciate you so much regarding their describing comprehensively our bilateral relations. But now I have the new angle to observe our bilateral relation. Not only global level, that a true multilateral framework, UN or some other international global organization, and the trans-regional like the Eurasian continent, like SCO, like Belt and Road Initiative, and also the regional, like the Caucasus area. China and Azerbaijan have a very important cooperation, quite a lot, politically, economic, and cultural. But now I have the, take some kind of the position to observe our bilateral relation in some kind of we called pan-Turkish state civilizational framework from the West Asia through the Caucasus, Central Asia, and into China. So this is also very important civilizational linkage between us, not only between our bilateral relation, but also between our Turkish or Islamic state all along this area, right? So because the China, we are also the part of China is also the Islamic culture quite a lot in Xinjiang, in the west part of China. So in this regard, China would like to engage ourselves into this area in a pan-Turkish states. Now you already have the organization, right? So I hope that in this framework, China and Azerbaijan also to enhance our cooperation in this kind of framework. Not only Shanghai Cooperation Organization, not only Global South or BRICS, or their pan-Asian competence conference. Every 4 years we have the summit, right? So I think this is also a very important platform for us to enhance our mutual understanding, mutual communication, and even somehow to enhance our cooperation. Not only to manage our, in the regional affairs, but also our bilateral affairs, in particular in China, because this also is very important Islamic elements inside of China regarding our nation building. So maybe the third part is maybe some kind of question, right, to our Azerbaijani friends. So in these aspects, so from your understanding or point of view, how to enhance our mutual interaction, to enhance our cooperation and also to stabilize and enhance the regional resilience regarding economic and cultural exchange. So this is my question to you, our friends. Thank you.
Would you like to take it? Thank you, Professor, and I'm glad that as part of this meeting, you are able to meet your dear student, one of our colleagues in our team. He's, by the way, as a head of division, Chinese in his portfolio. He's fluent in Chinese. He is one of the famous authors of various books in terms of, yeah. Dictionary, yes. He's a scholar, one of the famous when it comes to China, and his background obviously is one of the reasons he's in charge of this region and especially of China within our ministry. I've talked about various dimensions of our relationship. Obviously, as diplomats, as a Minister of Foreign Affairs, we do our job. But there are many other dimensions. I've mentioned about the important interactions between the Communist party of China and the ruling party of Azerbaijan, New Azerbaijan Party, and the exchanges that take place there. Important dimension is the interaction between the legislative bodies of two countries and the friendship groups in both assemblies that operate. And I mentioned about the visit by the chair of our friendship group in our parliament to China just a couple of months ago. Interactions in terms of the people-to-people exchanges, the humanitarian projects, the activity of Heydar Ali Foundation, the leading foundation in Azerbaijan that supports humanitarian projects here in China. So there are various dimensional levels in terms of enhancing our relationship. So we are only just a piece of this bigger puzzle, right? So you see this political level, which is of course the bedrock of this relationship, but then there are many other tiers of that. But without stable political relationship, of course, you won't be able to nurture other levels of relationship. So what we do is part of the bigger picture, but on other levels, those activities are all ongoing. And the fact that we expect enhanced and deeper relationship with China in the months and years to come, I think this only speaks to the fact that we will also see increased cooperation in education, more students coming and going and studying at the leading universities, both in Azerbaijan and China. The cultural level, the number of cultural events hosted in both countries. There will be an opportunity in 2 years from now to celebrate the 35th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two nations. So this is all in the pipeline, and we are active in terms of how we could enhance this relationship going forward. As I said, because there is a political will. We are determined that we should continue to invest in this relationship, and of course the kind of opportunities that the country of the size and scale such as China, the first economy in terms of PPP, could offer, it's just enormous. So it would be a sin not to use these opportunities for any country. And as I said, because of the very old and good traditions that we enjoy in terms of our relationship, going back to the to the century of the ancient Silk Road and so forth, and then all the other important aspects you've spoken about, the Turkic and Muslim communities in this country, which is very dear to us, to our heart. It's something that, of course, is a critical factor in terms of the deepening the ties between the two countries. So this is all in the pipeline, and I hope to see this coming in the very near future.
Thank you again, Your Excellency. Time is running fast, but before we wrap up, can I invite Mr. Xie to speak just for 1 minute, no more than 1 minute, and then Zoom, you speak for no more than 1 minute about your impression, whatever, or in the case of Mr. Xie, when do you plan to visit Baku, for example? Thank you.
Okay.
Very briefly,
well,
yes.
Thank you. Well, I'm so honored to join the hosting of the Azerbaijan delegation. Since time is so short, I must want to express my feeling, my appreciation to your repeat, the Azerbaijan's repeat, the One China policy, because in my diplomatic career, I spent all the years on the Taiwan issue. And this issue now, because in the current situation, it's become more pressing with the Taiwan secessionists now acting so radically. And the new U.S. administration, and they are continuing the so-called Indian Pacific the policies. So we feel unprecedentedly. I myself feel so oppressed that we still, and we want to rely on the international community to support to the One China policy. So that's my hope. So the time is so short, I would like to pass the mic to...
Thank you. Yes, Zoom, please. Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Gao.
As I mentioned, Zoom is a distinguished Pakistani scholar in China.
Thank you. And Your Excellency, thank you for your remarks. I will be very brief due to paucity of time only. There were many questions that I thought we could maybe discuss, but one of the things I wanted to mention is that in 2021, I had the honor to participate in the Nizami Ganjavi International Youth Dialogue as part of an SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization grouping, and that was an honor. In 2022, they did invite me in person, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to go. So I hope I'm one of those people that do raise their hand next time you ask. It would be an immense opportunity. What I'll mention here is that for China and Azerbaijan, these have been very significant years, but also for Pakistan and Azerbaijan, the last year has been very important. And when you talk about the SCO, you also mentioned the non-aligned movement. You also mentioned the Loss and Damage Fund. I think when we talk about a more just global order, we can recognize that these ideas of a better represented global south, also more proactive global south, are not just conversations, they're being applied today. And Azerbaijan is an excellent example of that application of an active country that is developing, but also paving the way for more creative cooperation moving forward. What I'll briefly add here is that I think within China, we do see bilateral and also multilateral fora, but I think even CCG can be a great opportunity for Azerbaijan, Pakistan, and other like-minded countries in the region to think about furthering cooperation in trade, in AI, in youth dialogue, culture, etc. So I hope we can have more similar conversations and collaborate in a multilateral setting in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Zun. I think there are... Oh, yes, please. There's a lady. Yes, the Excellency wants to say something before the lady wants to make some point.
Thank you, Ms. Khan, for that comment. Definitely Brazil country, so glad to see you here. Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif, you just paid a visit to Azerbaijan just a month ago. President Ilham Aliyev, he paid a visit to Pakistan last July, and we signed a number of documents back there in Islamabad. I was there myself in January as part of the joint intergovernmental economic commission, and definitely we have been discussing many times the potential trilateral cooperation between Azerbaijan, China, and Pakistan. As you have correctly mentioned, a lot of shared vision, a lot of shared views on global political issues. And I was a speaker at the Nizami Forum, by the way, a week ago. I was there on the panel, so glad to learn that you were there in 21, and I hope that you'll be able to pay a visit. You know, it's an annual event normally held in March before Nowruz, which is a day holiday to us, our new year. And I hope that we'll be able to see you in the upcoming events of the Nizami Center.
I'm afraid we're really running out of time, and the delegation may need to make some other important meetings. Do you have a question or brief comment?
Two questions.
Yeah, very brief, very brief. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. I'm a journalist from CGTN, and I prepared two questions for Deputy Minister. The first one is, Azerbaijan plans to use 30% renewable energy by 2030, which is highly consistent with China's carbon goals. And while the two countries carry out joint research and experimental development in the fields of hydrogen energy storage, transportation, and carbon capture. Thank you.
Is it one question or two questions?
One question, and another one is about AI.
Just briefly, we have actually now increased our target. So you're right that the number was 30% by 2030. Now we have even an ambitious goal of 32% by 2027. And the reason is because we have engaged in a number of projects very actively for the construction of the renewable energy sources. In particular, I'm talking about solar and wind farms. I mentioned earlier we have commissioned already one of the solar farms which was constructed by Masdar. It's an UAE based company which works in, I believe, in more than 40 countries. It's quite well known for 240 megawatts. Now we're working with Saudi Arabia Aqua Power to have the wind power plant also for 240 megawatts. Working with China Energy, as I said, there was an agreement signed just recently in order to have 160 megawatt solar farm. So I can't say we are engaging exactly in research. That is what your question is about. But we, over the last couple of years, we have actively engaged in the construction of those of the renewable energy source plants. And as part of that, there could be, of course, the cooperation in terms of research in renewable energy. Despite the fact that we're a fossil fuel country, as I said, we have made our decision to diversify away to renewable energy. But it's not just the words; these are the real deeds that are behind that. And for the coming year, we hope to be able to generate around 6 gigawatt in terms of renewable energy. And we hope to be able to export the renewable energy, because we will be producing very soon more energy than we need for our domestic consumption, and we will be exporting that energy to Europe. So research in terms of, is it possible? Of course it is possible, and hopefully it will take place. But we are very active in this on this front.
Okay, thank you. And the last question. You have led the construction of digital Silk Road, and how do you evaluate the competition and cooperation between China and EU in the areas such as 5G standards and AI ethics?
On AI ethics, we've joined there's a document they adopted at UNESCO on AI ethics. You may be aware of. We were an active participant when that document was discussed. UNESCO is also in my portfolio, by the way, within our ministry. Digital Silkway, we're currently working. There's a document signed quite recently in terms of building the digital cable in the Caspian seabed, which would connect Azerbaijan to Kazakhstan and to China. That would provide with an alternative source of digital connection to Europe. So that's an important project. That's one that we call the digital Silkway. So that is obviously part of our plans. 5G, the technology that's been embraced by Azerbaijan, and by the way, as I said earlier, Huawei is one of the companies that is out there and has been active in our telecommunication sector. That is my background. That's why I know it. I know it very well. And these areas, as I said, and the professor has mentioned earlier, in terms of our potential development, AI and the information technologies, and putting more resources in digital Silkway, I see these are as evolving areas for cooperation between Azerbaijan and China. So I'm sure this will be part of our agenda between Azerbaijan and China.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellency. His Excellency mentioned Huawei on several occasions. Let me assure you, Huawei is an outstanding tech company. I think if Huawei were an American company, all the American people would be very proud of them. But Huawei is a Chinese company, and all the Chinese are very proud of Huawei. And Huawei is really generating miracles in many countries in the world. Wherever I go, except in Western countries, Huawei is, generally speaking, highly welcome. If you go to UAE, holy cow, Huawei is everywhere. So I think you are really dealing with a very competent, very successful high-tech company, and more recently, they are branching into AI very rapidly. So I think with your blessing, I hope Azerbaijan-Huawei cooperation will also be a great success. We are running out of time, and I hope Your Excellency and the ambassador and all the Azerbaijan friends will consider all the Chinese, as well as Zun, who happens to be a Pakistani, as friends of Azerbaijan. And we look forward to meeting you with the embassy people and also traveling to Baku and other cities in Azerbaijan in the coming days or weeks or years. And you will always be welcome to China, and CCG will always be open its arm to welcome you. Whenever you want to come to make a speech, to talk to the Chinese side, and also to exchange views with, let's say, Professor Su, whom I highly admire, and we will always be ready to continue our discussion. Thank you, Your Excellency. Yes.